Did you know that in an 8-player match, Ditto is unable to spawn? How do I know that? Well, the wiki said so. But no, on this channel we like to see things with our own eyes. So I made a rule set with infinite time and Pokeballs set on high, created an 8-player environment, and I just kept spawning in Pokemon. And to note, I used Temple due to its size primarily, but also because 4 Pokemon are now unable to spawn here. Those being Alolan Exeggutor, Lugia, Lunala, and Marshadow, which we can tell by just going into training mode. This means we have a selection of 51 Pokemon that can spawn now, instead of 55. I kept track and I spawned Pokemon in over the course of an hour, which was about 250 times. And these are my results. And out of all 51 Pokemon, the only ones that did not spawn once during this entire hour were these. Now, I'll go into detail about the other 9 that never appeared during this session later, but for now let's talk about why Ditto didn't appear. The first and probably most obvious thought is that Ditto is considered a CPU, and since there's already a max of 8 players, there can't be another one, right? When you spawn Ditto, the computer that takes control of him will move around in a fashion identical to the normal fighter, albeit a bit dumber. Okay, maybe a lot dumber. But this is what really sets him apart from other assists. His moveset is a mostly direct replica of the fighter who spawned them. But this isn't necessarily a guarantee that it's just a CPU, right? On top of this, training mode has a unique quirk to where spawning items does not remove the 1v1 multiplier. In here, only having another fighter appear will. Given this, if Ditto was truly just a CPU, when he spawns the 1v1 multiplier should theoretically go away again, right? But it doesn't. Again, this alone doesn't make it impossible for Ditto to be on the same playing field as normal CPUs, but it does show how he's in a bit of a unique area. Sort of a cross between CPU and item, or something like that, right? But no, the proof to me comes from this prompt by Useless Noob from my Discord server regarding when you unplug your controls. You know how if you unplug a control in the middle of the match, this screen will pop up? Notice the 2 vacant spots to the right of Ganondorf here. If we spawn in Ditto in a match and unplug a controller, we'll actually in fact see a CPU be added to this menu, whose character is obviously whoever spawned the Ditto. So yeah, this here is Ditto. And if we're in a 4-person match, the controller screen looks like this, but when Ditto spawns, it gets squished down to the 8-player selection to make room for Ditto. So as you can tell now, it seems that whenever Ditto spawns into a game, a CPU is actually temporarily brought into the match as well, just not shown on the portraits down below. So in an 8-player match, since the player cap has already been reached, Ditto can no longer be spawned, since its presence fills up a CPU slot. If there's no slot available, it makes sense that it can't spawn. So I think this is very interesting. The game really considers Ditto more of a CPU than I once thought. But okay, just real quick, what about those other Pokemon who were missing from the 8-player Smash match? These 9, yes. In a 250 Pokemon test, they didn't appear once, despite the fact that they are common Pokemon. And every single legendary spawned at least once, usually more. Well, of course I did more testing, as well as got help from one of my patrons, Lorenzo, just to get some more data, and here's the result of one of my 125 Pokemon tests in a different match, but with all the rules and everything identical to the other test. And in here, the only Pokemon missing are legendaries, who are rare anyways. And Ditto, because of course he is. So here, these Pokemon were able to spawn. So it's not like they're locked out of 8-player Smash or anything. And just in case you were wondering, yes, in all of our tests, Ditto never once spawned, which is probably a total of like 600, maybe 700 Pokemon spawns, in case you were skeptical. Now, because these strangely missing in action Pokemon were able to spawn in a different match, all of them together, I just have to sort of chalk it down to dumb luck. Or rather, a lack of luck, I guess. This kind of made my job a little bit harder. But I can't help but find this to be really weird. Every single other common Pokemon spawned at least 6 times, and yet these common Pokemon spawned 0 times. It feels lopsided, right? But even with all of the videos regarding Dream Speedrun under my belt, I'm not an expert at statistics. So I can't whip up an appropriate equation to really prove whether or not this is weird. And trust me, with my limited experience in statistics from college, going off of just gut feeling alone for these types of things is very unreliable. At first I thought that maybe in any given match there's a chance that some Pokemon are just unable to spawn. In all of my tests, I always felt like a certain group of Pokemon were just missing from the bunch, who are then very common in other matches. But the only way for me to really test this is to do a 1000 Pokemon test in one match or something. But unfortunately I have limited time on this planet Earth, so I think I'll just sweep that one to the side. It really stood out to me as weird, which is why I'm pointing it out now, also because I didn't want to redo that 250 Pokemon test. But at the moment there's no real reason to believe that this is anything weird outside of strange luck. And the only thing that's consistent throughout all these tests is that Ditto didn't spawn. Speaking of consistent, not. So you know Zelda, right? We've got 3 whole Links in this game. Default Link is based off of his Breath of the Wild appearance. Young Link is based off of his Ocarina of Time appearance. So technically also Majora's Mask, but not really. And also technically Twilight Princess, but you get the idea. And then Toon Link. He's primarily based off of his Wind Waker appearance, but this general Toon style can also be found in Minish Cap, as well as all of the other Four Swords related games, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. So it makes sense that the Link here on the Spirit Track stage would be Toon Link-ish. So it's been kind of a known fact that when Toon Link is in the match, the Link conducting the train gets replaced with Alfonso. Sorta like he's taking a break from the conducting because he's now fighting.
Dude, I could beat gaming.
So yeah, all is well and dandy here, but wrong. If you go as any of the Links, then the Link conducting the train will still disappear. Even if you're Breath of the Wild Link, the Link from trillions of billion quadrillion years into the future. Or Ocarina of Time Link, the Link who disappears from existence probably before the Spirit Tracks timeline. They both make the Spirit Tracks Link disappear. On one hand, I get it, Link is Link. But isn't the implication of Link going from conducting the train to having to be replaced supposed to be that he's going from conducting to fighting? I'm sorry, but this does not look like this. I sort of just found this out randomly, and at first I was wondering if I was just being stupid, not knowing this before. But okay, do you remember that post Sakurai made about Alfonso replacing Toon Link? The one where he's like, just leave it to me, and that spawned a bunch of memes? In that tweet, Sakurai specifies Toon Link. Not just any of the Links, but specifically Toon Link. So I think that's why it caught me off guard. So I don't know, leave a comment if you didn't know that either, I guess. But no one asked, right? Moving on. This tip here was brought to my attention by Gemcast in regards to Stage Builder and CPUs. See, normally when you go into the testing phase of Stage Builder, you're given this lifeless corpse as a training partner, who's set as if they were on stop in trending mode, meaning they only try to recover when knocked off stage, but nothing else. Now you can change fighters or whatever to switch things up, but ultimately even if the CPU's level is changed, their AI stays the same. So if you want an active partner here, you're gonna have to take control of this other player slot. But not only do some people not really have access to this option, but as Sakurai said, this is not how you're supposed to play the game. So what if you want to test out your stage in the pretend battle? Well actually, if you just go make your player 1 slot a CPU, and make the player 2 slot be what you're controlling, when you go back into the match, the CPU will actually act. And it's according to whatever level it is. So as you can see, when I changed it to level 9, it now actually, functions. Granted, yes, you still need a second controller in order to take up that second slot, but you only have to be actively using one controller, so I think that's pretty convenient. And I gotta say, testing out a stage is way more efficient and interesting if you actually have some moving target to battle. Also, every time the character I was controlling was labeled as a CPU, instead of player 2 on the portrait, usually the other CPU is also, well, a CPU. I think the CPU will only be labeled as player 1 if you start the match from the Stage Builder menu, but if you go back into the fighter selection screen, it'll be normal again, so yeah. So that's a nice little tip if you're trying to test out a stage you're making. Next up, Crimson Doppio gives me a little fact about Spring Stadium. When this DLC first came out, one of the first things I tested was the stage's ceiling. And we saw that while it's solid from the bottom, acting like a ceiling, it's not solid from the top. So you could say place a bumper onto it when throwing it from below, but if you throw it from above, it'll just go through. Very weird. However, it seems it's not just the bottoms that are solid, but also the sides. Lucario here just wall jumped, in case you didn't catch that. Meaning, of course, if you can wall jump, you can also wall cling, which makes a very weird, odd-looking stalling technique. The positioning seems to be really precise though. Like, not too precise, but it still took me a lot of tries to get it right for this video. Not to mention how most characters struggle to even get this high anyways. but it's definitely possible. And of course, I wanted to try it out with Sephiroth's Impale, and yes, this also works. This is basically just considered to be a wall of sorts. A very slim and small one, sure, but it's still a wall, so it makes sense that all of these other things work. So I bet you didn't know about that. For the last topic of today's video, Typhlosion the Volcano Pokemon asks what happens if you pocket Yoshi's Egg after it turns metal. This is another topic we've gone over in the past before, but basically, to recap, while normally Yoshi's throwing eggs look like this, if he turns metal, the eggs also become metal. And the same is true for when he becomes gold, which is actually pretty cool looking. The question asks, what happens when the eggs get pocketed in this state? Do they stay metal or gold? And the answer is no. The moment Isabelle unpockets them here, they're no longer special. But wait, what if you make Isabelle become metal or gold? And the answer to this is yes. If Isabelle or Villager are metal or gold, when they unpocket Yoshi's egg, the egg will also be metal or gold, just as it worked for Yoshi before. Even if the Yoshi who tossed the egg was never metal or gold to begin with. So the egg just sort of takes the form of whoever tossed it, even though the egg dots stay blue even when changing owner. Also, the egg will stay golden even if the effect goes away from the owner after it's thrown. And finally, Xerneas asks if Younglink's bombs can turn gold too. Now, I'm not entirely sure why they singled out Young Link, but after testing him, none of his projectiles changed appearance or anything like that. Same for Link. And to expand from this prompt, of course, I tried testing all of the projectiles that one could consider to be a part of the character themselves, in the same way that Yoshi's Egg is for him. But for the ones I tested, none of them really changed appearance either. At first I thought this was just because Yoshi's eggs changed color when he changes alt, to match his new color scheme, meaning the projectile was more hard-coded into the character or something. But then you go into someone like Game & Watch, whose neutral special doesn't change appearance, despite the fact that it also changes color to match the alt. So I don't know, Yoshi's just special I guess. And since I like to do this nowadays, for some reason, let's see what it looks like when Steve is metal or gold. I love it. Oh, the fact that it absolutely covers everything and just leaves us with Metal Crate Man is actually kind of hysterical. Now, none of his unique blocks or TNT or anvils or anything like that become metal, though nor does the crafting table or anything. But his weapons do, which can make it a bit hard to figure out which material it's made out of. Can you tell which type of shovel Steve is using here? I forgot. I'm mostly joking though, it's not impossible to tell. The color effect that corresponds to the material type will still come from the attack. So looking at this, we can see it's a little bit grayish white, so this is iron. This is more brown in color, so it's definitely wood, and this is clearly yellow, so it's gold, etc. But even then, this makes Steve a bit more confusing in the Metal Smash meta, so that's honestly hysterical. Anyhow, that'll be it for today. I'd like to thank my patrons Nestor Franco, Sashanks, Skully, Burbo, Hobo King Niklz, Raighne, BG, Daneplay, Feurolant, Dino, Dustyn Dustyn, Glaceon, Jigs, Keckothedragon, Lorenzo Rodriguez, Skye, and LOONA. God, I'm getting a lot more Patreons, so yeah, you know, I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep verbally naming them. Why not? Let's make it so we have to do that for an hour. Yeah. Whatever. I don't have much to ramble about today. I guess summer is finally coming. Getting a bit hot over here. Actually, it kind of fluctuates, but you know. Now I can finally keep my windows open and whatnot. Summer is definitely my favorite season, so I am excited, even if the nights can be a little bit difficult to sleep in. But I have a new AC now, so that might help. What are y'all's favorite seasons? I guess it mostly depends on where you live, too. Like, if I were further south, I might like summer a little bit less, since it'd be, like, way hotter. But I don't know. I like hot more than cold in general when it comes to temperature, so yeah. Leave a comment down below or something. So with that, keep at it and stay casual. I'll see y'all later.